Hey guys, it's Vince. Today in this video, I am going to be doing a compilation of all of my Mach 3 optimization videos. I'm getting a lot of questions. Now, I want to make it as easy as possible because a lot of my videos, again, are all over the YouTube channel because, again, I have well over 400 videos. So what I'm doing is making a longer video. Again, it's going to run probably about an hour, but if for the guys out there that are just getting their system and want to work with Mach 3 or Mach 4 for that matter, it'll give you a heads up on setting up Mach 3 correctly and what programs you'll need to really optimize it and what things to look for. So carrying over right to that now. Hey guys, it's Vince. Today in this video we're going to be discussing some steps that I've kind of taken for granted in the sense of how long I've been doing this, but I wanted to do this video because I'm noticing a huge influx of more end users, and whether your background is novice or advanced, these are steps to optimally get your PC ready, whatever PC that is, Windows based of course, for operating your CNC. So what we've got here is just 6 outline best practice steps. These are what I recommend everyone to do. If you already have a system that you feel is stable, it's totally up to you, of course, to implement these steps. But I will say this, the more people I've spoken to, whether it be a past client or a potential client or just in passing, that have performed these steps, they always tell me, even if they thought their system was stable before, they see a performance increase. So these are just best practice steps I've learned over the years, and again, I feel that there's a lot to be learned here, and I hope many of you do implement these and let me know the results in the comments. So first, I want to just cover what we're going to be talking about, steps to be done in best practice for using your selected PC to control your CNC. You're going to first and foremost review your PC's internal hardware to make sure it's sufficient for the software you'll be running. Best practice is to use double the amount of memory recommended for any software's minimum requirements. Now guys, I have debated this for the longest time, whether again it be with potential clients, if they're using the bottom of the barrel PC, whether they purchased it at a yard sale, a friend gave it to them, you know, a family member gave it to them, it really doesn't matter. What matters is, are you using the proper internal hardware of the PC to actually control your CNC? Once again, we're using it for robotic automation. That means optimally. You should be using at the least a dual core processor. Right now, quad core processors are so cheap in both AMD and Intel. I prefer Intel myself, but that's my total preference. You can have a Ford and Chevy debate with that. Either one of those are fine, whether it be AMD or Intel, but a quad core processor is going to provide you the largest bang for your buck for when you're doing multitasking. Makes everything smoother in the operation of all software, but much more coherent to the system, less burden on everything. So again, price point, very cheap, and something to look at. Now, as far as your memory, look at the software you're going to be installing. Review all of the websites for the software you will be installing and look at what their minimum requirement is. And read the details closely, because a lot of guys will say, well, Mach 3 says I only need this amount of actual memory. Well, that's true. And I've done videos on this in the past. If you go through my channel way back when, I broke down the minimum system requirements for these pieces of software. But what's interesting is when you read the minimum system requirements, they also have that caveat in there, is what's known as optimally run requirements, meaning what hardware is optimal for you to run this type of software. And as years progress, it seems that people think because the software is older that it's not stressing the system the same way. Well, there's some truth to that. The thing to keep in mind is that you're still doing tons and tons of math with your CPU. And again, that central processing unit, we want to make sure has enough memory and has enough free space itself to accomplish the task we're doing and not struggle and not lock up, not get blue screens, weird things happen, and be in a proper environment. So again, looking at this, I cannot emphasize enough, if you look at a piece of software and it's for motion control or it's for CAD CAM software, whatever it is, if it says it needs 4 gigs of memory or 2 gigs of memory, double it. That's the first thing out of the gate. Always double the amount of memory. It's going to make your system faster, everything smoother, and the price of memory is so low, there's really no excuse not to do it. I find a lot of guys run into more and more problems because they stress using an ultra cheap system. They'll buy the best robot and use the cheapest computer to run it, and I'll never understand it. I've gone through it numerous times on my channel, and the bottom line is the robot is being controlled by the brain of the system, which is your PC. So again, invest where it should be invested in terms of the highest dollar amount you can afford. I always recommend going with the highest dollar amount PC you can afford. It'll pay for itself in the long run as you expand your business model, and again, as you guys become more adept at manufacturing, it's going to have large amounts of payoff. So again, another point that I cannot emphasize enough: many of you guys buy your systems overseas. You buy your system overseas, and I get comments all the time, questions all the time. I'm having problems with soft limits. I love your video, but I can't implement soft limits and I'm running Mach 3. Okay, we start going over the weird things that are occurring, and you tell me that after I nail down some of the details, going back and forth, a couple emails, and then you tell me that apparently you're using a copy of Mach 3 that came bundled with a system you purchased in China. Well, we already know that everything coming out of China, and everyone should know, is most likely pirated. Therefore, they're doing registry cracks or things to manipulate the software internally to make it install in your system. It appears to function normally. Most of the time, there's features missing, there's Trojans installed, there could be all kinds of corrupt entities, and you want to be very careful on what you install. First and foremost, if you purchase a system overseas, you should be purchasing a legitimate copy of Mach 3 or whatever motion control software you'll be running, and for that matter, whatever CAD/CAM software you're running, because I'm seeing now that they are offering a lot of CAD/CAM software overseas. Guys, do yourself a favor, and I cannot emphasize this enough, don't make more problems that will haunt you. And I can't emphasize it more than that. I get questions, like I said, more times about software and PC issues that guys don't really associate with PC. And I'm telling you right now, your PC is everything when it comes to CNC. The hardware and everything else will fall into place if the PC is set up correctly. So this is imperative. I hope you watch this to the end. Reinstall your Windows operating system with the most recent version your PC and motion control software can run. Common sense to me means if I'm dedicating a system for business use, or I'm dedicating a system to implement for just a robot, that is what that robot is dedicated for, that is what that system is dedicated for, and therefore dedicating a Windows operating system with a fresh install, it doesn't take long at all to do, especially with modern PCs running the proper amount of memory. Do that from the gate, and make sure you've backed up any files you want. Keep it as clean as possible, and starting with a fresh Windows install is the best way to go. Now, you can do a recovery, you can do a general install. A lot of guys will say, well, I've got this system, it's used, I don't have the operating system disk. Well, again, online you can either purchase the operating system disk, or you can either download a bootable copy. Again, I do offer consultations for that if we need to go down that rabbit hole, but overall the information is online and available if you're looking to do so. Doing that one step will eliminate probably about, well, I'd say a good 90% of your problems. And the reason I say that is, again, with guys using either borrowed, lended, whatever type of computer they got, a yard sale computer, they think, hey, I turned it on and I'm good. Or I get told this too, I purchased it and had a new copy of Windows installed and they think everything is good. Never believe that. Always start fresh with your own system and what you did, because we don't know what that end user did prior in terms of what kind of operating system they installed. That yes, it may be new. Is it pirated? Does it have any Trojans in it? Does it have, any things that could corrupt your CNC or make it potentially work in a manner that you're not accustomed to, and then you're hunting once again down that rabbit hole. Because here's the thing we're trying to do. Once you eliminate all of these variables, and you can see how I numbered everything here, if you just use this video and go down these numbers with the PC and date this when you're completed with this PC that you've allocated for CNC use, you're going to have all of this knowledge to say, hey, you know what? I already know this computer's set up right. There's nothing here wrong with this. I can then install everything, and then if something else does arise and you do find you have a problem, it's much easier to identify using T&E, and that's trial and error for those guys just getting involved with this genre, and then you're not chasing yourself down a rabbit hole of, okay, what could be wrong with the PC? Is there something wrong with software installed? So on and so forth. So once again, installing Windows with a fresh installation. If you want to back up your files, that's more than fine. You want to do a system recovery, that's fine. That's where Windows basically reinstalls itself upon itself, replacing all files. That's fine. The main thing is you start with a new operating system and the most modern version your motion control software and your PC can run. So if you're running Windows 7, I highly recommend going up to Windows 10 because those outdated operating systems are no longer supported, and therefore you run down the rabbit hole again of trying to find, drivers or any type of issues that arise. You have to keep going back and back and back and hopefully finding the answers to questions where more modern operating systems already have that information readily available. Step 2, remove all programs and apps that aren't required for the operating system. Now again, this to me is logical, but I have a lot of guys that'll say, well, I have an HP system. It came bundled with a lot of pre-installed software. Guys, get rid of it. You're not using it for it. You wouldn't leave your house with the water on. You're not using programs that are installed and once again dedicated to CNC use. Remove those programs. You want nothing that can corrupt the system. You want to keep the system as fresh and new as possible, once again, as previously discussed, to make sure you can identify any issues that arise immediately. And once again, rule out any of those issues being from the PC. So again, if it has apps on there, anything, eliminate it. Now, let me clarify one thing that I get asked a lot on, or I get told a lot on, or told about, I should say, and that is that a lot of guys will say, well, my computer's not even hooked to the internet. Well, that has its benefits and its flaws. Okay, first of all, if you're using a modern operating system, you're never going to get updates. Some guys are okay with that, some people are not. When I say modern, Windows 10 and above. If you're running Windows 7, it'll update usually to Windows 10, and I've had guys say that I don't want to run Windows 10, and if I leave it connected online, then I'm running Windows 10 because I come back and the system's updated. This is totally, once again, up to you, the end user. Keep in mind, and I'll say it again, the older the operating system, if it's not supported by Microsoft, you are SOL in terms of time finding the answers to most of your questions or most of the solutions, unless you're hunting and hunting and hunting, previous articles online. Some may actually work, some may not, and I see clients go down that rabbit hole a lot of times, and I'm trying to save many people all of that time by saying stay with the latest and the greatest. You cannot go wrong. This is why I always recommend using either Ethernet or USB to, as far as a controller, for any DB25 systems like a parallel port system like a G540 or any normal breakout board, because again, it alleviates you guys having to use a 32-bit operating system, which is Windows XP typically, or I have some guys using Windows 7 try and have some good results, some bad results. So again, I'm telling you right now, keep it simple, stay with those basics, and you'll be set. Install Revo-Uninstaller to keep your system as clean as when it was new. Now this program I've discussed in previous videos. I'm going to put a link here. Revo-Uninstaller is amazing. I'm going to do another follow-up video on it, and it basically breaks down exactly how you can clean your system to keep everything immaculate. When I say immaculate, a lot of times guys think that when they use add remove programs that a program is thoroughly uninstalled. This is not correct. Okay, you're going to have registry entries left. You're going to have bits and pieces of that software remaining in your system, which can play havoc, especially if you run into an issue when we're coming to CNC robotics. Therefore, in best practice, using Revo-Uninstaller in let's say a Mach3 installation failure removes the software as if it was never installed, leaving no traces. Some guys do not understand that, again, using the add remove programs in Windows, they assume that it's doing the same thing, and it's not. So again, this program is designed for that. It cleans your history, it keeps your internet browser clean, everything. It's the only software I use and recommend in terms of, again, servicing your PC after going through the above steps. Because again, if you use it regularly, you're going to be set as far as having a brand new PC as far as internal operating condition. Step 4, install all required drivers for your CNC controller. Gotten to this point, everything is set, the system is immaculate, you're clean, you're good. Now it's time to start installing the required drivers for your CNC controller. And that means whether it's a UC100, whether it's an ESS, whether it's PLCM E3, whatever it may be, this is the time now to install the required drivers for your CNC controller. Now there's a caveat here as well. If you guys have a CNC controller coming from China, you're in a conundrum, because what may or may not be present is, once again, just because they provide a disk and they give you the driver does not mean that it's not been manipulated by them to contain any foreign software. My suggestion is, if you have a controller coming from China, always install an antivirus ahead of time. You do not need an antivirus most times unless your PC is going to be installed in an environment where it's connected to the internet. Okay, if it's not connected to the internet, usually you're going to be fine. However, if you're connected online, I personally like my computers connected online. Adding, Bitdefender or another, antivirus program is going to save you in the event you go to install something and it'll catch that before corrupting the system or potentially having you go back and have to rehash some of these steps. So again, listening to what I say with this sounds a lot like common sense, but again, a lot of guys miss these details and think, oh, I just got the system in, I've got this new computer, I'm just going to do this. I'm telling you right now, this is probably one of the highest ranking ways to assure system success is starting with a clean system. And again, using disks or any software that comes from China should always be checked in best practice. So my guys out there using Chinese controllers, please do yourself a favor. Make sure you have that antivirus installed, or any guy that has their PC connected once again online, have the antivirus installed, and it'll always protect you in the long run. Install your selected motion control software will be the next step. Mach 3, Mach 4, UC, CNC, Pneumatics, Linux, whatever it may be. This is the next following step. Once that is installed, then you have a decision to make. And I have certain clients that say, hey, I don't want to put CAM software on this system. I just want motion control software because it's going to be used just to control the robot. So be it. That's fine. Use a USB stick to transfer your data. That's fine. Just keep in mind, whatever files you put on USB, and I can tell you from past experience myself, I've been burned by USB many times. If that USB file fails or there's a data corruption on that drive, you're SOL. I would say before doing the USB file transfer, get yourself a cheap hard drive. I mean, you can buy them now at 100 gigs for, $15 to $20. Buy that. It'll hold 1 billion files. It's much safer if you're going to do the file-to-file transfer. USB drives can do, like I said, they have havoc. They can get, once again, we're only dealing with 5 volts, so that transfer and that implemental transfer of data, anything can happen in lieu of that. You lose power, any type of shock in the system, anything. I mean, it can literally disrupt it, and you can be SOL very quickly. So please be careful. If you forget to hit add remove in the bottom corner of the screen over here, like let's say per se, and if you don't use this safe to remove hardware on certain operating systems, I believe it's Windows 7, you will find you can get corruption. So again, I'm telling you, USB is fine to use. However, I highly recommend using a hard drive, and preferably a solid state drive. I like those much better. Their failure rate's much lower than a standard hard drive. Again, CAM software, if you're ready to install it on the system, you're going to have it on all one system. And a lot of guys using laptops, this is typically what my guys do. That's fine. Now would be the time to install it. And once you've completed these 6 steps in this sequence, you know your computer's done, guys. That's pretty much it. You know that the computer is set up. I would then make a log stating that, hey, you know what, I've set this computer at this date. You can go into your recovery settings and have her set this as a recovery restore point. Now in Windows 10, this is totally possible. But again, most of it's a general walkthrough, performing a recovery solution upon you completing all of these steps. Assure that if you ever have a problem, you can roll the system back to this previous time when this was all done, and you start fresh. You don't then have to go through this whole rigmarole of all these steps in sequence to make sure the system was configured the way you originally did it. So again, knowing these steps, understanding this, I have a lot of guys that may not be as computer literate as others. These are critical, and I cannot emphasize that enough. Taking the time to do exactly as I've outlined here will save you easily 90% of the heartache. Most system problems with software, drivers, controllers, they all usually start with something PC related. Always something PC related in terms of either settings, which would come after this, or also how the system is set up or where the software came from, of course. So again, I felt that this video is long overdue, like many of my videos. I hope that it's helped many of you. Hey guys, it's Vince. Today in this video we're going to be discussing one of the most critical topics that I've yet discussed, and it's how to determine if the PC you're using is stable for CNC use, whether you're doing hobby use, recreational use for yourself, or production use, where it's even more critical. And again, as the video's title states, this video can easily save you hundreds if not thousands of dollars, especially with time and chasing your tail in trying to figure out what the culprit is. I get messaged constantly on PC issues of all sorts, and usually the email goes like this: something happened to my computer, I lost all my data. Something happened to my computer, I'm getting a blue screen. Again, no real detail, no explicit information as far as hardware being used, and miraculously I'm supposed to touch my crystal ball and figure out what is going on, and we know that's just not possible. So what I want to do is make it openly available for you guys to use programs to test your own system, and there's two programs you have to use. Both are free. The big thing here is, and I want to cover this explicitly because I've said it in numerous videos, but for some reason the topic keeps coming up. A hobbyist and a full production machine, there is no difference in. As far as controllers, both of you expect an accurate system. Both of you expect to have whatever you're doing with that robot come out the way you planned. If you're not expecting that, then you might as well tune out of my channel, because I don't build those half-ass type machines. So what we're doing is I'm focusing on two groups. If you're a hobbyist, that's fine. You recreation use. Keep in mind these programs are for you as well, because as soon as you load a piece of substrate in your machine, you will find out that if it miscuts or goes crazy or decides to crash into itself abnormally, typically the first thing that most guys do is assume it has to do with the EMI because they've seen my previous videos, and it could very well be that. However, if you run this test and find that your computer does not pass this test, you can rest assured it's the PC's fault most of the time, and I would say most being about 95 to 98% of the time. Okay? Secondly, my production guys, I don't have to tell you, if you're cutting aluminum 6061, you're buying sheets, you got a 5x10 system, large sheet of aluminum, it screws up. How much is it costing you? No different than the guy with the hobbyist. That's why I said it's disillusion, slight dementia, when guys feel that working as a hobbyist is so much different than working in production. It's really not. It really depends on the hobbyist we're talking about. Some guys that are hobbyists I know are more critical than when they actually sell components. Sounds funny, but it's a fact. So what we're going to do today is discuss these two programs. The first program is called Intel Burn-In Test 2.54. Now you can go on Tech Power Up, just do a search, Intel Burn-In Test under Google, click on it. It's going to come up right here. And basically what this program is it's going to overheat the CPU intentionally with process. It's going to stress it. And what we want to do here is stress it to the point of where we're not exceeding what would normally be seen in the highest end user program. And when we say the highest end user program, many of you are saying, well, CNC programs are never that daunting. I disagree. If you're running CAD, if you're doing any type of CAM work, if we're doing Mach 3, We're doing all kinds of math calculations all at once. The other factor many of you seem to ignore, and I've seen this numerous times, and I don't know why this is that you don't take into account temperature. Ambient temperature of where your system is going to play a tremendous role on how stable it is. If you go into a commercial CNC facility, you're not going to find that there's no air conditioning, that these systems are just, grease all over them, they're sloppy. You got a $250,000 Haas machine, it's going to be golden, because usually the business owner / programmer / end user will realize exactly what investment that company has, and they want to make sure that machine is pristine, as I would hope many of you would. So again, always factor in not just the PC itself, factor in the ambient temperature of the environment it's running in. And the beauty of these burn-in tests are not only just stress the hardware in terms of the memory and CPU usage, but it's always going to stress the actual heat production and how well the computer can handle that heat production in an environment that many of you may not consider, especially in states where it's ridiculously hot, and I hear it over and over again. Many of past clients and potential clients feel, you don't need a climate-controlled environment, and I totally disagree with that. Okay, we are dealing with a machine that is a robot. It is not a machine that's designed as a drill press, as a scroll saw. This is a robot. So again, when I hear guys contact me and tell me about steppers are hot and this are hot, of course they're going to get hot naturally, but when they're in another 100+ ambient degree temperature, how much hotter are they? How come parts fail prematurely? That's why. So what we want to do here, again, we're going to use LinPack from Intel, and basically what LinPack does is it's going to take your x86 or x64 processor, and again, we don't have to get into technical terms here. I don't want to go back into exactly what makes up a 64-bit, what makes up a 32-bit processor. The only thing you need to be concerned with is how to run this test, what parts of the test are important, and what parts of the test are going to work. So you're going to download this. You'll come over here. You'll click this. Select your server from where you'd want to download it, and it will be in a zip file. Now once you have this program done, we're going to go back over and we want to download Open Hardware Monitor. Now some of you guys will be lucky enough to have a hardware monitor on your system that may have come pre-installed and you know how to run it. And the hardware monitor is so that we can see what's going on as far as temperature and voltages with our CPU and all the cores of our CPUs, and we want to basically analyze all the temperature of the system, because once we run that LinPack associated with Intel, it's going to turn up the processor's use at a maximum level. We are hoping to find instability when we run this program, because if we find instability, we can then prepare in a simulated fashion for never having that happen when we're running a program that is critical, like when we're machining. Makes sense, right? So essentially, what we're going to do once you download this, and again you can see here you can also donate. It's a great program, free, again very simple to use. You're going to download it, click the link, and you'll go from there. If you need the actual website, it's openhardwaremonitor.org. Okay, very simple. Once we download these pieces of software, you can see I've got them on my desktop. Here they both are. And now to run, first we're going to run the Open Hardware Monitor. You can see right here, we're not going to buy anything. We're going to go to Open Hardware Monitor, double click, and then openhardwaremonitor.exe, double click on it. Click on yes, and it'll pop up. You can see my laptop here. I've got an Intel i7 4710HQ CPU, and being she's quad core, you can see all of the cores, and those are individualized. The beauty of this is that you can see here what the Celsius temperature we're running on our processors individually per core. Okay? Load on the cores. You can see where we're running right now. Powers, CPU package as far as wattage. Okay? Load on the memory, 24.9%. Now I've done a video on a similar program, and I also have that installed as well. And that is System Explorer. This is a little more detailed because all we're doing now is we're trying to load and review the load that we're placing on the system when we run the Intel burn-in test. Because what we're trying to do is see if this stable can handle the stress at maximum level more than we'd ever achieve in a normal program environment, so that we can see if it's stable. Now, before you run any simulator test, we want to make sure that your PC is placed in the exact environment that it would be under normal use. And why we want to do that is because, once again, if you're putting it in your cozy house at 70 degrees and then we go outside in Vegas and you're in your garage at 105, we want to make sure that that temperature variable is included when we run the program. Okay? So what we want to do now, click on our Intel burn-in test. You can close this out. Intel burn-in test. Double click on the exe. Once again, do you want to allow this app from an unknown publisher to make changes to your device? Click yes. And now you see it came up. Now, these are the two pieces of software that will be required to run this test. And just so everybody is aware, these two pieces of software are typically used by PC gamers who overclock. And that term overclock means that they take their CPUs and memory and typically run them above stock speed. So it's like taking a car and putting a turbocharger on it and doing a dyno test to see if everything is stable with what associated hot rod parts you've installed. This is no different. The difference is you're not doing all of the extracurricular activities to the system in order to make the performance higher, so to speak. We just want to make sure everything is stable with what we currently have prior to us loading substrate and attempting to cut to make sure the system can handle what we're trying to do. Okay, so stress level here, you can see it's set at mode 64, and that's because it's going to auto-detect whatever architecture your operating system is. If it's 32-bit, it'll say 32-bit. If it's 64-bit, it'll say 64-bit. Your stress level. Now, we can go with custom, we can go maximum. I highly recommend going maximum. And the reason we say that is we always want our actual testing to exceed any program we would ever run at any time. And if we're running multi-core CPUs, as my system is and many older systems are, even if you're running an Intel Core 2 Duo or older type CPU, or for that matter, even an AMD multi-core processor, this is imperative that you always want to go maximum, because if you guys ever multitask, and many of you do, and that simply means opening up more than one programs at once to do two things at once, so to speak, this program will once again give you that feedback to know if I run maximum stress test, I know for a fact that my system will never reach that level of use, and therefore everything underneath it will be stable. So again here, available RAM, and you see this number constantly changing. And it's changing because of back processes that are actually going on in the background. Okay? So when we click on maximum, it's selecting the maximum amount of memory in my system. Well, that will not typically be allowed because your system is not going to allow you to allocate it. So in this case, I'm going to go to custom. Now I can allocate how much memory I want the test to include. Okay? And the reason we want all the memory we want to use in this test is we want all the CPU horsepower, all the memory power available, so we can once again simulate that load at the highest level, so we can see exactly what effect it has on the system. Okay, some other quick areas to discuss here is the checkbox for output results to results.log. If you check this box, you will get basically a log file. Once everything has been completed, you can see here once again you've got your results, speed, G-flops, all that neat stuff. The main area we're concerned with is this freeze test, once again with the avatar for the flames. Another area you can adjust if you so choose is the thread count used for your CPU. Now, under general use for our applications, I highly recommend leaving this on the default setting of all. This way we get the highest stress on our system available. That's imperative. So I'm assuming now you've done the right thing and already put your system out in the environment where your CNC chassis will be located, or where you plan on running everything. Once you have that, you can see here, take notes on the values of where your CPU is. You can see right now my value is right here, CPU core. I can check everything here. You can see your bus speed, CPU temps. These are really the areas we want to stay in. You'll stay here with load, and we'll stay here with temps. And these are going to change dramatically once I click on run, more or less. Or in this case, start. Time to run, 10. I don't recommend changing that. You can change it longer, but typically if it runs 10 cycles and the system is stable, you're golden. Okay? If it locks up or you have some weird things happening. You'll see this little avatar here as we start it. It'll start acting like the flames are wiggling. If it stops, it's letting you know that basically the system is not stable. So once again, if we're going to encounter any trouble, we want to encounter it before we hook it up to our machine so we know not to use a PC. Once again, saving you time, saving you money, and hopefully showing you that, again, that PC that you assumed was perfect, you'll know a problem exists prior to even using it. That's the goal. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to shrink down the memory allocation. I got 24,495 being used. I'm just going to go a little bit under that. I'll go 24, let's say 400. Just make an even number. Okay. Once I do that, I'm going to click on Start. As soon as I click Start, we're going to once again pay attention over here to the temperatures and the load, and you're going to see exactly what happens. Okay, she's working right now. You can see our freeze test. You can see what I mean by the avatar for the flames. You can see it's in motion. And you can see, if you look at my temperatures, they're starting to climb. CPU load. See how the load's going up? We're at 100% on all cores. CPU wattage, everything is going up. So now you can see exactly, similar to what a car would do with a dyno, you're seeing everything internal of your PC. It's letting you know what's actually happening. Now you can sit here and watch this thing. It'll usually run for about 3 to 4 hours. Why do we want to run 3 to 4 hours? The longer time we have where this software runs stable, then we know that we have a longer defining factor of stability for what we're trying to do. Some guys may want to run this even 20 times. You can set that number whatever you'd like arbitrarily, but typically, like I said, 4 hours is plenty. The main thing is that you pay attention to everything we have here. If you're dealing with an older PC, the main thing you want to look at is make sure everything with your heatsink around your CPU is clean. Dust will negate any cooling. Okay, so we want to make sure all of our cooling fins are clean, make sure all the memory is clean. I've done a video on deoxit. This is where all those neat little electronic additives come into play, because all of this will aid in making everything as stable as possible in the long run. Because again, it's not one variable, it's all of them. So you can see here how we're climbing. We're climbing steadily. Temperature goes up, goes down, and then you'll just see it keep climbing. Processor usage will keep fluctuating, and the wattage will keep fluctuating. Once again, if you look at our memory load as well, you can see it's also going way up. And that's exactly what we want. Because the overall goal here is to make your computer as stressed, once again, more than it ever will be, because we know in this case, once you load Mach, or Mach 3 or Mach 4, regardless, you see CNC, Centroid, whatever motion control software you want, we then have that peace of mind to know the system is stable. Okay? Once we know that, then we have different variables as far as if you do have troubleshooting, you can then go in and say, you know what, I've already done this test. I know that the system is stable. You've eliminated it. Okay? So I'm telling you right now, I hope many of you watch this video to the end, because after I'm done with this, I'm going to cover with you a backup XML file that's created automatically in Mach 3. Many of you don't even realize. And I get questions on this all the time. Oh my God, I lost everything. My hard drive crapped out. Again, we have to educate ourselves with due diligence and hold yourself accountable. I mean, I cannot emphasize that enough. I am not there with you guys. If you don't message me complete messages, I can only answer what is given to me. Okay, and I only work with variables. As an engineer, that's all we can work with. So when you send me, hey, I don't understand what this is going on with the system, well, neither do I, because I'm not there with you. So videos work really well. Extreme pictures, extreme detail. It may take you an hour to put together a message. It takes me 2 hours sometimes answering them. So we have to look at that. But overall, you can see here, again, LinPack output, time, seconds, speed, G-flops, results. This will be populated as we go, but overall you can see exactly what's going on here. Right now, you can definitely feel on the exhaust fan of my laptop, it is smoking hot. So it's definitely doing what it's supposed to do. Again, you can see your wattage is being used, and it's pretty amazing how running this type of simple test could save someone's bacon real quick and a lot of money, with the hope and the dream that, hey, this PC I just picked up at the flea market for 40 bucks is going to work great. Well, we're going to see. Because if it does this, and it could very well work fine, but I would rather, like many of you, be certain before I lay down a sheet of whatever I'm cutting. I've had guys do, Stratocaster guitars, and they're doing, real high-end woods, and lay it down, and that same guy's a hobbyist, and he's like, oh man, I've had this wood forever, I'm going to do this, and then he lays it down, and boom, computer freezes, there goes your system. I don't care if you're using a servo or anything else. If the computer has a problem, it's the neurological center of CNC, and I've said this before. Okay, the first letter in CNC is stand for computers. So again, we have to look at that and analyze everything at that level. This will take that variable out. So what I'm going to do now, and I want to clarify this again, if you guys close this program, now this program you can close just by Xing it out. If you close this program, it is not going to stop. It will run in the background. And how do I know that? Well, watch what happens if I close it. You can still see processor is still at 100%. Okay? What's really interesting, if you come over here to System Explorer, where I've discussed in previous videos, you can see it's also at 100%. So it's showing you everything here is normal, but unfortunately we're still running the burn-in test. So you can't just simply hit the X in the top right corner and exit out. What you have to do is hit Control-Alt-Delete, bring up your Task Manager. Once it opens, you're going to be searching for LinPack. It went too far. Better populate. There it is. Here she is. And you can see here, 100% CPU, it shows you everywhere on the PC. It knows something is going on. Okay, so I'm going to click on that, End Task, and then you'll start seeing everything come back down to normal. Okay, it's closed. Once that program is no longer listed, you're golden. And then what we're going to do is watch, and you can see our CPU is now coming back to normal. Wattage is coming back to normal. CPU cores are returning or lowering in temperature. And then, of course, over here, load on memory is once again decreasing. Now, you can see here under max value, what that is the recorded highest temperature and the highest load and the highest wattage of everything that has been recorded. Okay, and the thing about an i7 is it throttles the CPU up and down, and that's what you're seeing here. That's why we're at 33, and then we're at 34. So you can see exactly what was going on. I highly recommend, when you're done, taking a screenshot. You can do it with your cell phone. You can do it with Snagit or whatever type of program you're using, or even record it manually by hand and date it, stating that the system passed this test, and then you have that variable covered, knowing that the knowledge is there, your system is stable. Now, as far as Mach 3, let's see what we can do with Mach 3. Because I get this question all the time by you guys. We'll go in, we'll say Mach 3, and you can see here there's an XML backups. Now this file is created anytime you install Mach 3. And you can see all my backups that have been auto-created, B21, 22, 23, 24, and numerically on and on. If you click on the README text, this directory is used to hold backups of your XMLs as you change them. If you would like to use one of the backups, simply change the file's extension to .xml and place it into the Mach 3 directory. That's it. So if, God forbid, you guys forget to do something and the system will boot, you still have these backups available. I've covered this in a previous video, but I still get questions on this. I highly recommend buying a cheap flash drive, 8 gig, 4 gig, they're dirt cheap, and doing a backup of any critical files you have, especially cut files. If you're doing DXFs, if you're doing Vectric or whatever CAM software you're doing, back up your drive. If you don't do that, guys, your whole livelihood could be toast really quick. So again, take the time, take the investment, and do that. I mean, it's imperative. But again, if you ever want to know if you have a backup, you do. And this is in Mach 3. I'm sure Mach 4 is the same. I haven't checked it in Mach 4, but it should be there. This XML backup folder is just amazing. And you can come back to even loading one of these to see, and you can actually rename them. I'm pretty sure that should not affect anything. I mean, you can name it what you want, just don't change the XB25, 24, so on and so forth. The cool thing with this is it will allow you then to even try different settings. So if you wanted to try one setting for one substrate and another setting for another substrate, different feed rates, so on and so forth, you have all of that. Or if you're running multiple robots. I have many clients that have multiple machines in their shop, and you can do backups and label it for each individual robot to tag them, so to speak. So again, I hope this video has been helpful, and I know I've probably generated more questions than answers. It happens all the time, and I expect that. If you guys have any questions or require quotes, once again, message me direct at storm2313@gmail.com. Again, if you guys need consultations, and I'm getting a lot more requests for consultations because, like I said, clients or potential clients have come to me with, unfortunately, system crashing issues. I've worked on many systems, and again, dealing with PCs, they're all different. I don't care how old it is, how new it is, they're all different. And again, each system may have different programs in it, could be running in the background, interfering with things. So certain things you may understand, certain things you may not, and that's why I said, being a mechanic without the car in front of me, most of the time a team viewer consultation will allow me to have access to your system. We can go through it together and identify the problem, rectify it, and get you up and running. If that needs to be done, of course, we can do that. Please message me. Again, you'll see that information on the screen. To all my subscribers, guys, I love you. We are definitely growing. The channel's getting crazy big. I mean, at least for me it is. And I'm just trying to keep up, so please bear with me. Thank you all for your support. Take care. Hey guys, it's Vince. Today in this video, we're going to be discussing ways to optimize stability on your PC, because many times I'm receiving message after message of guys claiming that they think they have EMI issues when in turn they actually have PC issues. So I've done previous videos, many of you already know. I did one on CPU priority about 2 weeks ago. And then I've also done videos in the past on, optimized systems used for CNC as far as hardware spec related. In this video, I'm going to cover direct from Warp 9, and for those of you not familiar with Warp 9, they manufacture the ESS. They have a topic in their FAQ section named Tips for Windows Operating Systems. Now, if you go through this list with me, and I'm going to just peruse it with you right now in this video, you're going to find answers to a lot of questions seldom discussed on any forum, regardless of it being Mach3, Vectric software, CAM software of all kinds. Most of these are overlooked, and I don't know why they're overlooked. I don't know why so many people, won't take the time to go through all the details required to be understood as far as getting involved with this genre of robotics, but it's a must. And what I wanted to do is just go over it with you guys to give you a better feel of what I've said in previous videos and tie it all together, because a lot of times guys don't believe what I'm saying until they experience an issue, and then all of a sudden it becomes reality. So rather than do all that, if I could save you the pain, we'll do that right now. So what we've got here is some topics. Which version of Windows will a smooth stepper run on? And once again, they manufacture the smooth stepper, so they base everything around the smooth stepper. However, there are a lot of topics in these articles that are based just around CNC use, and I cannot say that enough. If you do not have the horsepower, meaning for the PC, to be the neurological center of your CNC system, you will have stability issues. Okay, if the machine randomly stops cutting, it's not always a direct determination from EMI. It could very well be the PC being used. And unfortunately, like I've stated earlier, a lot of PCs being used today for CNC use are from the 80s and early 90s. And that's just simply ridiculous when you're running a $5,000 to $6,000, $7,000, some people $10,000, $15,000 robot. It just doesn't make sense to me, but it happens a lot. So either way, you're going to see smooth stepper come up a lot, and now you know why it's coming up a lot. However, again, these topics are redundant in the fact that they do pertain to CNC systems all over, whether it's parallel port, UC100, whatever the device may be. These topics pertain to it, so we'll check them out. 32-bit or 64-bit Windows is another topic. Windows 10. Older versions of Windows. Andy's PC and my suggestions. Really interesting topics. We'll go over that. making Windows more friendly with Classic Shell, running Mach 3 at higher priority level. I've done a video on that. I will link that as well, so you guys will have this all in one place to make sure that running at a higher priority level will be saved. A lot of times when you do that inside of Windows, you do not get that saved the next time you open the program, and that makes it all but useless unless you want to manually do this all the time, which doesn't make sense. Disabling unused network protocols, disabling Ethernet adapter power management. Now these two are only really going to be based around the ESS. If you're using the ESS, again, very smart to do to set up your system for the optimized use with the ESS. Overall, most clients don't need to do that with their systems typically, but again, these are protocols that I recommend if you're experiencing any type of stability, or if you're just starting out and you just want to make sure you cover all bases. You can't go wrong like this. You can always reactivate them later on. Adjusting virtual memory and other improvements. This is a powerful one. We're going to cover that. Optimizing your PC. Weird Windows issues. So as we scroll down here, which versions of Windows will the Smooth Stepper run on? Many of you guys already know the answer to this. Again, they're basing it because they're the manufacturer of the ESS, Windows 10, 8, 7, Vista, and XP. 32-bit or 64-bit Windows. You may use either 32-bit or 64-bit Windows with a Smooth Stepper. 64-bit Windows allows your computer to use more than 4 gigs of RAM. And the ESS Ethernet Smooth Stepper and USS, they have a USB Smooth Stepper as well, will run 32-bit and 64-bit Windows. The only disadvantage of 64-bit Windows is that Mach cannot control a parallel port. But Mach can control our Smooth Stepper, so you won't need a parallel port, of course. Again, you can see here the main disadvantage, they're going into the RAM of the system, that's random access memory. That dictates a lot of how your PC stores and runs and functions programs, guys. I'm telling you right now, you do not want to use the minimal RAM to run any type of software, and this reiterates that point. The main disadvantage of 32-bit Windows is that you can have a maximum of 4 gigs of RAM, minus some stolen by video resources and other areas of the operating system. Now, once again, I've said this in previous videos, back with Windows XP, you could run Mach 3 with 2 gigs to 4 gigs of RAM quite acceptably. However, with Windows 7 or newer, we recommend 6 gigs and prefer 8 gigs of RAM or more to give you a better user experience. And that's a lot being said. That right there dictates everything I've said in a nutshell, and this is coming direct from them, who is the manufacturer. There's a lot of BS online, and if you don't separate that BS, you guys are going to find a deeper hole in your pocket than just doing it right the first time. Memory counts. I hear too many times that guys are saying, hey, I'm getting away with what I have in my system, it's working. Okay, just be aware that if it stops working, don't chase the rabbit down the hole, so to speak, into thinking, oh, I've got ghosts in my machine and it's EMI. If you don't master the fact that the neurological center of your system is the PC, you're going to have problems. And this sums it up right here. Archaic systems that are running 2 gigs. I see guys running 512 meg of RAM, and they think, oh, well, Mach 3 is fine. Just so you know, you see it right here direct from the manufacturer. Later versions of Windows become more labor intensive on the hardware, and therefore more memory is required. Windows 64-bit will support the following maximum amounts of RAM, which is typically much more RAM than your motherboard will allow. And again, you've got everything broken down here. And this is a great question. How much RAM do I need? Depends on which version of Windows you are using, and if you're in Mach 3 or Mach 4. Mach 4 does require more RAM and CPU power than Mach 3. No matter what, I strongly recommend that you adjust your virtual memory, and again, we'll go down to that level and you can read about that. With Windows 7, I do recommend 8 gig of RAM for a no-worries experience. Once again, the manufacturer is stating, with Windows 7, I do recommend 8 gig of RAM for a no-worries experience. And again, that's based on ESS, which is pretty amazing because the ESS really takes a lot of the workload off the CPU of the system. But CNC is labor intensive, and on top of that, when you take that labor intensiveness and then amplify it with the fact that we're running, a newer operating system on old hardware, it makes it even more stressed. It just doesn't make sense. Be on the safe side. 8 gig is set. I recommend personally for any cam system, and if you're doing cam work at all, many of you guys understand it, 16 gigs is really optimal. 6 gig usually works here, but you want to make sure your other programs are closed. There are some people that do manage to run on 4 gig, but they have almost everything else turned off in Windows 7. For an individual who knows what they're doing, go for it. And once again, they're just giving you that. With Windows 10, there are some people who run fine with 4 gigs. The user experience is better than 8 gigs of RAM. If you're running Windows 10 with 4 gigs, you're not doing a hell of a lot with your computer. Many of you know that. So again, we go from there. Windows 10. When the 64-bit version of Windows 10 is updated, Bill, it will no longer allow Mach3 to use its DHL, which causes Mach3 not to load, and it gives you the solutions here. Once again, I'm just perusing over the areas that really are driven more around the ESS. I want to stay more with what is driven more around open use for CNC. And once again, you can see here it goes through isolating both the USB smooth stepper and how to get everything nice and smooth as far as turning off Windows updates for Windows 10 and so on and so forth. Older versions of Windows. Windows 8 is available in 2 versions, and again, comparison of editions. Now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. Andy's PC and suggestions. My current rig image is below, and he's telling you my thoughts are for a decent system. Now, apparently Andy is someone that's worked with Warp 9 and is giving you an outlook on what he recommends. He's running 64-bit Windows 7 or 10, 8 gigs of RAM, 4 gig minimum is possible, and we've already seen that. i5 or i7, which I've already discussed. That's an Intel processor, multi-core. 7200 RPM mechanical hard drive, and preferably an SSD drive or solid-state drive. I would upgrade components in this order. Make sure you're running at least 8 gigs of RAM. Once again, always at the top of the list. Get a solid-state hard drive instead of mechanical. This will shorten application loading times more than anything else. Also, the spin-up time on a mechanical hard drive can make your computer stall for 5 seconds. It might make Mach lose connection with the ESS. Well, guess what, guys? If it's doing it with the ESS, it can definitely do that with other controllers like the UC100. All of these, once again, these little variables are applicable to any system. I'm not a big fan anymore of the standard mechanical hard drives just due to the fact of their reliability. Solid state is much more reliable. There's no moving parts. The prices on these components are dirt cheap. I think you can buy a 128 gig solid state drive for maybe 30 bucks. I mean, we need to really look at this stuff, and once again, don't be penny wise and dollar foolish, so to speak. 16 gigs of RAM would be awesome. You want at least 8 gig minimum. Once again, with 16 gig, programs will almost never run out of RAM unless you're running tons of stuff in the background. Most of you never do that. Jump up to a quad-core i7 III. This will give you 8 threads of processing power. Once again, multi-core CPU i7 is definitely the way to go. Pricing those systems, even if you're buying a 3rd generation Intel system, you're probably looking, $300 to $500 depending upon what RAM it comes with. Well worth the investment. Making Windows more friendly with Classic Shell. Now, I myself use Classic Shell. Many of you guys may not know that. I know Windows 10 basically makes everything look like a giant cell phone. I'm not a big fan of that. I like the old traditional look of Windows, similar to Windows 7. If you install Classic Shell, it's a free program. It basically gives you all of the features of the virtuality, I should say, and viewing ability of Windows 7 and earlier versions of Windows. So again, it turns your computer back into what looks more like a computer rather than a cell phone. This just tells you where you can download it if you want to check it out. Once again, free program. I highly recommend it if you don't like the way Windows 10 operates in terms of all the big icons and all that Fisher-Price look, so to speak. Running Mach 3 at a higher priority level. Now, I've already done a video, like I said, a couple weeks ago on this. The way to do it that I actually cover makes it so that when you set Mach 3 at the highest priority level, you never have to go back and do it again because you're using Explorer software, once again free software, to allow you to set your system up. I highly recommend anyone using their system for CNC use to do this. This is just imperative and it's common sense, especially if you're using it for a business. And I hope my guys out there that are looking at starting a business or running a business, they go through this video, because I'm telling you right now, all of these features could be adjusted and optimized regardless of what computer you're using. Disabling unused network protocols. Once again, this is all based more or less around the ESS because it's utilizing Ethernet control. You wouldn't do this naturally on a USB motion controller like a UC100. It does have similar features as far as disabling power and usage and so on and so forth, but this is driven around the Ethernet protocols. Now, if you guys are using an ESS, feel free to go through this. Again, it's a step-by-step. Show you how to do it. And you can come over here and allow the computer to turn off the power saving. Okay, this is probably one of the most powerful features covered in this article, adjusting virtual memory and other improvements. You get a lot of questions on this. Regardless of how much physical memory RAM your computer has, Windows will allow use virtual memory, which is just empty space in your hard drive. Normally, Windows allocates a small amount of space in your drive and grows it over time as the operating system needs to transfer more and more program information there from the physical memory. Expanding and contracting the size of virtual memory takes time and can cause communication errors between Mach and the smooth stepper, along with random slowness or non-responsiveness. To solve this, we will modify the initial and maximum amount of virtual memory available so they are the same and much larger than the Windows normally provides. The procedure is for Windows 7, but the other versions of Windows will be very similar. Now, guys, you can do this, again, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10. XP, I don't believe, will allow it so easily. But this is very, very powerful. It will allocate how much memory, just in a short explanation, how much memory is allocated to be used for a certain program. Okay, step by step. For my guys using Windows 7, this will be screenshot for screenshot. For guys using Windows 8 through 10, you may want to just do a Google search on how to do it. But overall, it's very, very similar. I mean, it's not a big process to do. Again, you can see here, adjust for best performance. This is visual effects, and that's talking about, you know, how Windows actually does different screen mods as far as you going into different windows. Coming over here, adjust for best performance of programs, and then we come down here, and you can see virtual memory, and he's adjusting it. Initial and maximum should be the same. Now click on change and select custom size. I use 29,000 on one drive and 5,000 on my second drive. You will typically have just a single drive to choose from. For drives where you don't have much space left, I would recommend 12,000 megs. If you have plenty of space on the drive, on a hard drive or solid state, I would recommend 20,000 megs or 32,000 megs. And you can see right here where he's putting them in. And again, real simple, shot-by-shot example of where you can go through and do this. And you can see uncheck all, how he's doing everything. Super powerful stuff here. And once again, a lot of guys don't even realize that they can go into their control panel under power options and select how the PC behaves. A lot of guys will realize that their system is set stock, on balance recommended, which is balance performance. And they have another setting called high performance, and that basically runs all of your memory and your CPU at the highest levels. I highly recommend that. I mean, again, we're using this for CNC use. Even if you're not using it for CNC use and just enjoying your computer for multimedia use, this is optimal. Okay, it's an optimal setting to definitely manipulate. Coming over here, you can see he's setting it up so he never turns off his display, puts the computer to sleep. Once again, screenshot by screenshot. If you're using Windows 10, it's virtually the same thing. You'll go in, you could do a search on this in your control panel, and most of these features will pop up. If you're uncertain, you can always Google search it, but once again, with the screenshots, it makes it really set. Here's step 10, now set shown in the following picture. You will need to scroll up and down or use the arrow keys to move up and down through the list, and you can see here advanced settings. High performance active, and then you see he's turning off turn off hard disk setting never. This way there's never a stall in communication. Sleep after setting never. You can see he's hibernating never. He wants to make sure that the PC is on at all times and all features are functioning at all times. USB selective suspend setting. Now for my guys out there using a UC100 or a USB Ethernet smooth stepper, or excuse me, a USB smooth stepper, this is a setting that you would want disabled, because again, if you have a suspend feature enabled, it can lose communication. So once again, it gives you that false positive of potentially having EMI issues when you're not. So these settings, like I said, going through this video will save you a lot of time and will maximize the performance of your PC so that neurologically she can handle everything you're throwing at her for CNC control. Link state power management off. Minimum processor state setting 100%, so he's setting everything up to be fully active. CPU be running 100% at all times as far as being available. System cooling policy setting active. Maximum processor state setting 100%. So he wants that processor to be able to be throttled on to 100% whenever required. Turn off display setting, never. I see a lot of guys with that display setting set to basically be on standby mode. Never ever do that, because there is the possibility for lost communication. Now, once again, very, very powerful checklist. Optimizing your PC. If you are having issues when you are losing communications with your smooth stepper, once again, that's their model. This works with everything. Regardless of smooth stepper, figure this with UC100, anything that pertains to your system. Parallel port, same principle. They're stating smooth stepper. Your PC may be causing the issue. These steps have resolved slow, overburdened PC issues for many smooth stepper users and have helped to prevent the creation of scrap. So what they're basically saying when they say prevention of scrap, where you guys lose connection and you've just basically ruined a piece of substrate. So you can see the list here. I mean, look at this extensive list. I've never seen this list discussed on any forum. I hear a lot of guys discuss it on the forum, asking questions and topic about it, but I've never seen it discussed, and that's why this video really makes sense, because I've discussed it, but what I always typically find is that when it comes up, the questions keep coming up, and for some reason I get the same kind of rhetorical response where guys say, hey, you know what, this guy says this on the forum, I've been told this shouldn't matter, memory shouldn't matter. And by you seeing validation from a manufacturer that, once again, is pretty much world-renowned in CNC operation with Mach3 like Warp 9, it confirms what I'm saying. So I think you guys should definitely look into this. Here are some actions you should take, and you can see here, run your PC. Now they say use CC Cleaner. It's another piece of software. It's free. CC Cleaner is really cool. It lets you go in and clean up your system. I like Revo-Uninstaller. I've done a video on this. It's free too for 30 days. It's unbiasedly free, meaning nothing is limited. I'm telling you now, if you use this software and you need to remove a program, it will go in and clean out anything as if it was never installed in your PC. A lot of guys don't understand that when you use add remove programs in Windows, it's not actually removing the software as if it was never installed. It leaves bits and pieces of registry entries and certain files, and sometimes that over time can get cluttered and you basically are left SOL when you're trying to reinstall software. It may pick up those files. You want to always remove programs as if it was never installed in your system. CC Cleaner will work. Check out Revo-Uninstaller. I'll put a link in that in the actual video description for that as well. You can definitely check it out. It's free. For at least 30 days, you'll have your system set for that. Defrag your mechanical hard drive. Your hard drive is almost full. Adding another hard drive naturally. Going into the power options, you can see here as he goes all the way through. For Windows XP, and I get a lot of guys about this question, for Windows XP, if you have 2 gigs of RAM or less, it would help significantly to get that up to 2 or 3 gigs of RAM. Windows XP 32-bit, you can't use more than about 3.5 gigs of RAM, no matter how much you've installed. For Windows 7 and newer, if you have 4 gigs of RAM or less, it would probably be significant or help significantly to get that up to 6 to 8 gigs. Well, we've discussed that already, but XP comes up all the time. I get questions on it. If you guys are running XP, I'm telling you now, you're running an outdated operating system, and 98% of the time, when you run into fallacies, especially with drivers, you're going to have trouble getting that system stable. So a lot of times guys will wait and say, no, you know, I'm not going to do that. They go to cut. They were successful for a couple years. The computer craps out on them. They have a huge job on the table, and guess what? They're creating scrap. So I'm telling you now, be very careful with this. You're playing with fire. Adjust your virtual memory for better performance. And once again, disable Wi-Fi while running Mach. Do you have a second Ethernet adapter? Once again, they're basing this all around the ESS, but the principles are the same, and I cannot emphasize that if you take the steps just right here, based on what is listed, go through everything, clean the system up, set the settings, you guys will have a PC that's optimized for CNC use. And learning this area and this realm of CNC operation, especially for personalized CNC use, it will make your robot perform that much better in terms of not only stability but performance and speed. You know, we take the burden off the processor and the memory of the CPU and whatnot as we go through the computer settings, and everything becomes more symmetrical, and you'll find that everything runs at a much smoother rate. I can't tell you that enough, how many guys have gone in and made adjustments just in the priority level. I've gotten so many emails now saying what a big difference it's made, you know, whether it's been stability issues. I had one guy tell me that, you know, it completely cured any EMI issues he thought he had, and it's just because these are topics not normally discussed. Everyone thinks that if you just connect the PC, you're good to go. It doesn't work that way. You know, everything with CNC, and I've discussed this before, has to work in harmony. You have to master so many variables in order to have a stable system. You've got your computer, you've got the system itself, you got to understand all of the hardware and all of the software that runs the system. There are a multitude of variables inside those four. And when you think about that, that's what makes this such a huge genre to learn. It takes time. So don't be in a rush. Go through this video. I suggest watching again, or better yet, many of you are smart enough now to go through and actually take notes as I'm discussing these things, and you can go through, watch the video again if you have to, or go from your notes and sit in front of the computer and do all these settings, and I guarantee it'll make a difference. You guys, most of the time with virtual memory, you'll see that right away. So again, I hope the video has been helpful. I know many guys are going to still have questions. That's fine. Message me direct at storm2313@gmail.com. That'll be on the actual screen. You'll see it on the bottom of the screen. That's my direct email. And of course, you can always message me on my eBay store, and I'll get back to you guys as soon as possible. So thank you all for your support. Take care. Guys, it's Vince. Today in this video, we're going to be discussing setting up your PC to be optimized for CNC system use. Now, I can't tell you how many times a week I get message dealing with Mach 3, Mach 4, UC-CNC, Linux, you name it, I get questions on it. And usually it's potential clients telling me that they're having certain issues with software. Most of the time the software is being purchased with a system that they purchased overseas. And of course they're pirated copies. God only knows what registry entries have been modified. And they go to uninstall that software. They may even purchase a legit copy and find that when they reinstall it, they're still having glitches. And they tell me all the time, well, you know what, I've went to the add remove programs in Windows and I tried to remove the software, went through the process of reinstalling it, and I'm still having issues. Well, I'm about to break down the best tool I found for not only setting up new systems, but also configuring a system that's already been set up for CNC or business use. Now, regardless of what system you're using for, I use this software utility in basically every PC in my house because I can tell you once you've used it and tested it, this is just a priceless tool to keep your system optimized, clean, and again, as fast as possible. So this tool that I'm discussing is Revo-Uninstaller. Now, many of you may be familiar with this, many of you may not be. You can see here, clean removal of any program from your PC. When I say clean removal, guys, when I tell you guys to uninstall Mach 3 or uninstall whatever CAD CAM software you're using, I mean to say uninstall it in the method that it has never been installed in your system. Many of you think you do that by just going to add remove programs in Windows, which is not the case. And I'm about to prove that to you right now. We're going to come over here to my Revo-Uninstaller Pro. Now, before I get into detail in this, first of all, you can download the free version of this. It gives you a full 30 days. It is not a tester series where you're limited to certain functionality. It's the full version. After that, for a year to purchase it. When I say a year, you actually own the software, but if you want to extend the updates past a year, you would have to pay for that. Now, many of you will not need to do that. I buy the software outright for a year. It's $24.95. When I say that, once again, you own the software, but you only get updates for a year. I look at it this way. For the cost of a pizza, to know that all my systems are set, this software is the best. Now that I've stated that, let's go in here and see what this can do. So I'm going to click on yes. You're first going to see this dashboard that pops up. You can see here it says all programs. And you can see here it says uninstall. So if I clicked on any of these programs, which I'm going to do, Mach 3 is right here. When I tell you guys to uninstall Mach 3, just to let you know, this is a brand new installed version of Mach 3. I did this minutes ago. As a matter of fact, you can see install date here, 5/15/2019, and again we see its size is 97.99 meg. Now when I click on this, you can see that the typical window comes up similar to what you'd see when you go to uninstall it utilizing add remove programs in Windows. This is what's embedded in Mach3 software, or whatever software you'd be actually running. This is the exe to uninstall that piece of software. That being said, I scooted this window out of the way so you can see exactly what's going on here with Revo-Uninstaller. You can see creating a system restore point and a full registry backup is disabled. Now, I chose to do that, guys. In my version, you can enable that. The unique feature of this software is once you enable that feature as far as it creating a system restore point, it will do that so that whatever software you uninstall, if you make a mistake, it's foolproof. You just go back and reinstall it. It's a one-click operation, and again, very, very smooth operating utility. Now, after that, step 2, analyze and starting the program's built-in uninstaller for default uninstall. Well, it did that right here. This is the default uninstaller that's built into the Mach3 software. And then over here, number 3, after the program's uninstaller is finished, press the scan button to start scanning for leftover files, folders, and registry items. That is the power of this, and we're going to go over that. Scanning modes. You can see here if you're questioning what kind of scan modes there are, there's safe. You can see it gives you the defining factor of what safe is as we hover the mouse over it. It does the same thing for moderate. And moderate is what standard, is what I should say is activated standard with the software so that you can see exactly what goes on. Now, I've left it on moderate every time I've used this software. I've never had any issues. If you go to safe, you're still not going to have any issues for the guys that are really nervous and what they're touching. But for advanced users, guys, be very careful because, again, this software is serious. It will remove, and I mean everything. So be very careful with that. Just know what you're doing. Once again, I very, very seldom see a reason to go past moderate. So now what we're going to do is before we go and touch any of this, you can see it won't even let me click on anything. We're going to go with the regular uninstall of Mach3. This is no different than many of you would see as you uninstall the software and reinstall it. Okay, it's been uninstalled according to Windows. Okay, this is what typically you guys see. We click on Finish, and you think you fully uninstalled the software. So let's see if we really uninstalled everything. Right now she's doing her scanning, and she's going to go through the system. First, we're going to see our registry items, then any leftover files and folders. Okay, found leftover registry items. Keys 38, values 29. If we scroll through here, just look at all this crap that was left. And this is all stuff that's left in Windows, okay? In the background. You don't even know this is there. So what we do is select all. You can see the check boxes are now all filled in to those boxes. And I'm going to click on delete. Now it's going to give you a warning. Are you sure that you want to delete the selected items? Yes. Now it's going to go for found leftover files and folders. Look at this. Folders 72, files 524, total size 56 megs. It's really interesting. We're at like 99 megs for Mach3's full install, and it left 56 megs of folders left on the system when I uninstalled it. So that gives you an idea of what possibly could be corrupted when we go for a general uninstall and then reinstall the software over it. You've got all kinds of things happening in the background, and that leads to potential stability problems, which, again, could be catastrophic in a business environment, let alone a CNC environment. So now what we're going to want to do is just give you an idea. Look at this crap. All stuff left over. Okay? So now what we're going to do is select all. And now you can see all the checkboxes once again populate, and then we click on delete. Are you sure that you want to delete the selected items? Yes. Now, Mach3 has been completely uninstalled, and I can do this with any program that's installed in my system. Another super unique feature, I'm going to cover a couple unique features in this, is that Windows apps. Windows apps, now I'm running Windows 10 on this particular computer, and you can see all the stuff that's installed here. A lot of times, most of these apps you will not use, and I've removed quite a few, and you can still see the list that's still in the system. These apps take up space, they take up memory usage, which we're going to cover next, and they're not always the easiest to uninstall. With this software, you just click on it, and it will uninstall the app completely. And when I say completely, as if it was never in the system, you can see the uninstall button right here. Now, another unique feature, again, you do have browser extensions. It will list all the browser extensions that you have on your system. Okay, so again, lots of information here. Clicking on Tools, and this is where we get really powerful. We click on Windows Tools, Now, again, if you're using Windows 7 through 10 operating system, you're going to want to check out for any system you plan on utilizing for a CNC controller. You want to click on your resource monitor. This is probably one of the most potent tabs to actually review. You can see here my installed RAM, random access memory in my system, is over 32 gigs. Okay, the available memory, even though I have 32 gigs of physical memory installed, my available memory is right here. It's 25 gigs. And if you read, it says available amount of memory, including standby and free memory, that is immediately available for use. Let's see if it says that again. Immediately available for use by process drivers or the operating system. So again, guys, when you see this number, and many of you look and say, well, I've got this number installed in the system. Well, that's great. But what's installed in the system does not mean that you have that fully accessible for use. What you want to look at is how much memory you actually have accessible for use, because if the system resources that are running in the background, look at all these resources being run. Look at this. Look at this never-ending list. Okay? All of this stuff is being run in the background. Many of your PCs will be exactly the same, and if it's an older computer, it may even be a longer list, depending upon how much memory, or excuse me, applications and software you have installed. So again, pay very, very close attention to this. If you notice that this available memory is ridiculously low, let's say for instance you have 8 gigs of memory installed and you're only showing 3 gigs available, I would highly recommend you bumping 12 to 16 gigs. Matter of fact, I don't recommend using any computer with less than 12 to 16 gigs for this reason, especially with these modern operating systems, because especially when you're incorporating CAD/CAM software, it's just a memory-hungry application, a lot of math being done. So pay attention to this. You know, this is the heart of your system. This is your memory. And now if we click on this tab, we can check our CPU usage. Okay, in which case I'm using an i7 processor. I'll have 7 threads here. You can see basically what's going on here. You can see everything that's going on. And this is great analytics for any system. You can see here my general CPU usage is bouncing around. It goes from 26 to 53. It'll go up and down. If you see this number abnormally high, let's say 70 to 80%, you better be doing something with the computer. If you're not, check your applications and make sure you shut the application that's causing that spike. And you can see here CPU, and then it says average. You can cycle this over a little bit. Let's see if we can pull this up. Here we go. And then we can scroll down. And you can see exactly what's going on here. You can see your threads, status is running, description, tell you exactly what's going on with the system. Okay? And this is extremely important to do any type of troubleshooting with your system. If you notice a rogue application that's acting up, you can come over here and most of the time end the application and see exactly how that actual implementation of doing that will affect your system. That's really what you want to do. If you're troubleshooting a system with software, the easiest way to do it is trial and error, and even write down the list, whatever you disable. I always recommend taking a legal pad and just jotting down what application you ended, and actually note to yourself what actual difference it made to the system. May make it smoother, may make the system unstable. When you're troubleshooting, there's not a definitive answer. You kind of got to do a little trial and error. It's inevitable. But using these 2 tabs will make your life much, much easier. You can see hardware reserve 51 in use, 6785, modified 133, standby 5500 megs, and then over here free 20, or basically 20 gigs. So again, looking at this, and you see exactly what's going on, and you see the actual physical memory in use, it's a lot of memory, guys. It's a lot of memory, and I'm running over 32 gigs in this system. This isn't a toy. This is a real deal system. You guys that are running less than 12 to 16 gigs, pay very close attention to this. Okay, I've had clients and potential clients running like Vectric Aspire on Intel Core 2 Duo processor systems with 4 gigs of memory and wondering why they're unstable. Again, it's real easy to see with this. So paying close attention to this, paying close attention to your CPU usage is going to guarantee you get the most out of the system. Now, that being said, some other super powerful features here. Junk files cleaner. Many of you guys are running systems that are older, secondhand. It could be anything. It might be a hand-me-down system. You can come into this junk files cleaner and select scan. And if I click that, it's going to go over my hard drive. You can see my hard drive's right here. And it'll pull up every junk file folder that's on here. And as a matter of fact, gives you a description panel on the bottom. And it'll allow you to clean all of those junk files. Now, of course, the neater and cleaner the system is, the more stable it is and the more speed you have. So it makes sense to one-click do this. I mean, you can do this on a regular basis to keep the system immaculate. That being said, we can come over here. Here's our history cleaner. Now, many of you guys will be going online with your system now, especially if you're using Fusion, Autodesk, depending on the CAD/CAM software you're using. If you're just using your system with Mach3, that may not be the case. For those guys that are going online with their system, you can utilize the browser cleaner depending on your browser. You got Internet Explorer. I have Google Chrome. You can clear the history of visited internet web pages, temporary internet files, cookies, histories, you name it. The system will be immaculate with one click. Okay, coming over here up top to Windows Cleaner. Now, many of you don't even realize this stuff is in the background. Your clipboard, your recycle bin, thumbnail cache. I mean, you name it. Basically all the hidden files that are cached from programs, you can come in here, hit clear all, and this software will go through and basically clean everything. You also have a Microsoft Office cleaner. You can do that as well. Many of you will be using Office, so it's very typical. And again, to keep the system immaculate, one click, easy, go through the process, and you're done. Now, one of the most powerful features I love of this software, because I deal with a lot of proprietary information, is the evidence remover. I call it the government wipe, and basically what it is and when you execute this, it'll go through the hard drive of anything that's been deleted or any files and folders that you want to delete, I should say, and it will make it so that the files and folders are unrecoverable. And I want you to think about that. If you're dealing with finance, if you're dealing with, again, proprietary designs or CAM files that you're sending, emails that you're sending, whatever it may be as a backup that you do not want to be retrieved, once you run this evidence remover, it's gone. That's it. So again, use this with care, but it is a very, very powerful feature. Once again, you have unrecoverable delete. Basically the same feature. It's a security feature. Again, super, super powerful. And if you have any questions, you can just come down here once again to the description panel and break everything down for you so you know exactly what's going on. Backup Manager. I, once again, do not have the Backup Manager installed, mainly because I know exactly how to use this software and I know exactly what I use it for. However, for any novice that's getting involved with this and really wants to get the most out of the software, I highly recommend enabling the Backup Manager. You can see here it lists the name, operation, size, registry items, files, and folders. We can always expand this. And the hour of which the file was modified and manipulated. Very potent information. If you delete something, delete a program, and you want to go back, just hit restore and you're done. Much, much, much simpler than going through the whole Windows system restore process and all that crap. You could always go back and simply reinstall the software, but let's say you manipulated something and you just want to get it back. This is still one of the quickest ways I found. Okay, if we come over here, and then this one is probably going to be the next most powerful feature of this actual utility. Many of you, I don't even know the numbers. Many of you don't even realize how many pieces of software and applications are running behind the scenes on your system. You usually don't have access to them. Some of them are limited as far as what's being listed. If you click on Auto Run Manager, you're going to find, especially on new systems, that there's a ton of proprietary advertising type pieces of software. There might be trials and whatnot. You may never even touch this stuff. It's using up system space, it's using up system resources, and you have the choice of turning them off. Now you can see right here, I have quite a list, and not all of these, of course, are active because I went through and modified a lot of my system, again, because I don't use all this stuff. So you can delete these if you'd like, but if you uncheck the box, like let's say I go over here to Skype, I uncheck that, you can see Skype exe will no longer auto start. That will save system resources. Okay, if you want to check it back, which I just did, you can see it says status not running, the publisher, the description, launch path. Very, very powerful, guys. If you're just using a system for Mach3, you just basically want to have anything that's dealing with Windows operating system running. Anything else, nothing. If you just want a clean system, that's the easiest way to go. If you don't have the horsepower, cut down on all the applications that are running in the background as much as possible. Okay, you can see here running, not running, invalid. It'll tell you everything. Super, super powerful feature. So again, you can see why I like this software. Try it out yourselves. Like I said, 30 days, it's unrestricted. You'll test everything. You'll get that system up and running the way it should be, and you'll clean it. I guarantee you'll find a lot of crap in most systems. I have found, I mean, even on new computers, I found a ton of stuff. And like I said, with the app remover, come over here. We go into the Windows app remover. It's so nice to be able to remove a lot of these, especially between, again, dealing with Windows 10 now where they're trying to, do the crossover between a smartphone. I just love being able to go in and just manipulate that. So again, take heed on that. Check out exactly, like I said, the description panel on any feature you have questions about. And again, I think now you guys have a really good, thorough understanding. When I tell you guys to uninstall whatever software it is, you want to do a complete uninstall. And that means CAD CAM as well. A lot of CAD CAM software leaves a lot of different registry entries that can be corrupted. And again, it just destabilizes the system over time. The older the system is, the more accumulation in the registry you get. And when that registry gets bloated, you'll always find different types of stability issues. So I highly recommend going through and utilizing this. Like I said, check it out. Once again, if you can afford it, I highly recommend you buy it. I mean, it's $24.95. You own it. The only difference is you only get updates for the year unless you do re-up it. But I've used the older copies forever, and I'll tell you what, I'm very happy with it. I've used it on past clients' computers. It works excellent. You can install it on other systems. They do even offer a remote version one, but I don't really see a purpose in it when you can install the standard version, on other PCs if required. So again, very cool software. I hope that this video has been helpful. Once again, guys, if you do have questions, please contact me directly for quotes, whatever it may be. storm2313@gmail.com. If you want to contact me through my eDealer Direct store on eBay, I will put that link in the description as well, along with a direct link to actually check out the software. You'll have two, one to buy it, one to check it out. Again, download it. I highly recommend it, and get these systems as stable as possible, guys. Clean out your computer regularly. Go through everything. If you're getting glitches with Mach3 or any software, just uninstall it with this software and put it back in. I think you'll be super impressed with how clean the system acts as far as stability. And again, you will definitively see a huge difference in speed, especially on older computers, the more you clean it. So check it out. I once again want to thank all my subscribers, and to all my subscribers, or anyone else for that matter, or potential clients for that matter, that have been contacting me. I certainly mean no disrespect. I've been trying to catch up. I've been very, very busy in the shop. I have a couple other designs that I'm working on. So please just keep it. We'll reschedule a call if we have to, or schedule whatever type of email communication we can get together. I will do my best to get in touch with you guys as soon as possible. Thank you all for your support. Take care.